my entitled sister-in-law decides not to invite me specifically to her wedding, as she claims that I'm an unpleasant person to be around and that I'm just a spoiled brat, as well as the reason for all of my sister-in-law's problems in her life. But after my husband and the rest of my extended family found out about this situation, they all decided not to come to the wedding either. And now my sister-in-law is blaming all of this on me. And at this point, I am so blown away by her entitlement for her to blame me for something that I didn't even do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have 3 kids. Our oldest one is 7 years old, then we have a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old baby. And my husband's sister is the one getting married. Our relationship with her isn't so great. She is always making unnecessary comments, and I know that she dislikes me a lot. She didn't like me from the first time my then boyfriend introduced us together, and then when I got pregnant, I was still in school and my boyfriend had just started college. He ended up dropping out, and we needed a lot of support from our families to settle down back then. So my sister-in-law thinks that I messed up her brother's life and her family's life because I didn't get rid of my baby at the time, if you know what I mean. She has always been rather hostile. We mostly only see her at family gatherings, and she doesn't visit or anything like that, and honestly, that's probably for the best. She has caused problems before because she says that my husband was the golden child and she was the scapegoat. And then when I got pregnant, their parents basically adopted me and spoiled me because I was with my husband. So with that background in mind, here's what's happening. She recently sent out invitations for her wedding. She sent my husband his invitation, which had his name and our 3 kids' names, but it did not include mine. My husband asked her about this, and she said that I'm not a pleasant person to be around, so I'm not going to be invited. He told her that is extremely disrespectful since I'm his wife, and they argued a bit about it for text messaging, with my husband eventually telling her to not count on him or the kids being there because they are absolutely not going. She then blamed it on my husband being immature, and my in-laws tried to mediate between them, but she replied to them saying that she's not surprised they're taking our side. They got into an argument, and my in-laws said that since she's having this attitude, they're not showing up to the wedding either. Well, as you might guess, immediately afterwards she started blaming me. She said that this is all my fault because I could have just accepted that I'm not invited and allow my husband and children to exist without me for a couple of hours. She also called me stupid and uneducated, as well as spoiled, and that I have princess syndrome. I told this to my husband and his parents, and they told some other family members, and now apparently a lot of them canceled their assistance as well. And throughout all of this, she just keeps blaming all of it on me. And sure, I didn't tell my husband to go, I will admit that, so I think that's why I'm possibly a jerk here, because I could have prevented such a big drama, but I decided not to. But also, I think she's a bigger jerk in general, and in this case, she definitely might be the jerk for expecting my husband to be okay with leaving me behind. So honestly, I need to know, am I somehow the jerk and the person to blame for all of this going wrong for my sister-in-law? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your sister-in-law sounds absolutely obnoxious. First of all, you are definitely not the jerk here. Your sister-in-law didn't invite you on purpose, and she was somehow expecting you to just be okay with it. Like seriously, what was she thinking? Does she really think that your husband was gonna be like, oh, that's okay, I'll just go without you? Like there's clearly been like this long history of animosity from this sister-in-law, and she's always been this massive fort in your side, even at family gatherings and other events, and she's constantly been blaming you for all kinds of like problems in her life. So the fact that this blew up in her face, and then she turned around and tried to blame it on you after you just didn't do anything about it, in my opinion, is showing her true colors. Everybody is seeing on full display exactly how she is, and that is no fault of your own. You didn't do anything, and it's also super insulting because this wasn't up to you to say anything about it. Like she made the decision of not inviting you, and she did that almost under the assumption that you would make sure that this would be okay, as if you're supposed to coordinate with her to make sure that your husband goes to this wedding. Like I don't know about you, but if someone slaps me in the face, I'm not about to help them with anything in their life. So truly, your sister-in-law is incredibly toxic. I am so sorry that you're dealing with this, but thankfully everybody in the family is seeing exactly how she really is. So I think if anything, that might be the best silver lining to come out of this entire scenario. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My girlfriend hasn't held a job in over 2 years, and at this point, I'm getting incredibly frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My girlfriend and I have been dating for just over 2 years. 1 year in, we decided to move in together and signed a lease. I had concerns prior to signing because I had noticed that she tends to job hop quite a bit, but it seemed like she had a reason for leaving each job, and since she doesn't have a college degree, I assumed it wasn't such a big deal. Lower wage jobs do tend to have a lot of turnover, and I've worked them extensively myself, and they do in fact suck a lot, but it has started to become such an issue that I'm reconsidering our entire relationship, which is otherwise going really well. In the 2 years that we've been dating, she hasn't held a single job for more than 1 or 2 2 months at most. Most jobs she only keeps for a few weeks, and this has become weirdly obvious when 14 W-2s showed up in the mail. It's now stressing me out because she's once again getting ready to walk out on another job, and I don't have the means to provide for the both of us. Every single time she finds herself dissatisfied at work. I feel bad because last year I had to take a 3-month medical leave after a freak accident at my work, during which time I was unpaid because they inexplicably denied my short-term disability due to a technicality, so she was holding down the fort. Though she left her job towards the end of my intensive treatment, she did help me with a lot of financial things during that time. I went back to work part-time in the last 3 weeks of treatment, and she was unemployed through the last month of my treatment and through the holidays for almost 2 whole months, and this left me to shoulder the full cost of rent for 1 month, which she had done the months before, but I wasn't back to full-time work and I ended up accruing some debt. Whenever I bring up financial concerns, she circles back to this period and how draining it was for her to have supported me, which, to be fair, neither of us are exactly millionaires out here, and our area is very expensive. Her job hopping is to the point now where she is having difficulty getting hired in our area, and I cannot convince her that this has anything to do with the fact that she has left so many jobs and burned so many bridges that people might be aware that she's a job hopper, and that's all before she even gets in the door. She airbrushes her resume and is convinced that no one could possibly know her actual work history. Every little thing will set her off about a job and then she'll leave. She feels disrespected by a lack of response to emails, or they are being condescending in training, and then she'll walk right out over it. I feel bad because she certainly hasn't had an easy life, so it sounds super condescending when I try to tell her that every job has drawbacks, but we all have to work. I don't know how to communicate that in a way that doesn't make her feel defensive. I would otherwise call this woman the love of my life, but I don't know if I can deal with the financial stress and instability of being partnered with someone who can't and won't hold down a job. We can't budget, we can't save any money for trips, we can't work on our long-term financial goals because her pay is constantly unknown. How can I wake her up to how weird it is to bounce around like that and convince her to commit to something? Or should I take this as an exit cue? In her early 20s, she had a pretty bad injury at work, and I think she just never recovered her work ethic and feels very triggered by the work environment. I have tried to convince her to talk to someone about it, but she always pulls back and says that she can't afford it. Her job hopping has left her almost perpetually without health insurance, so we would have to pay out of pocket for any mental health stuff. I'm honestly feeling so frustrated, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Like, here you are just trying to find some kind of like financial stability in your life, and your girlfriend can't hold down a job, not because she's not qualified, but because of the fact that she just can't enjoy anything about her job. She takes everything so personally, and then she's like, okay, I quit, and that is seriously not a good way to handle any job in the slightest. Like, don't get me wrong, if the job sucks, then sure, you should definitely get out of there. Like, usually you can tell when a job environment is like super toxic and this is not a place you want to work, but I would argue for the most part that most jobs, at least for the first like 6 months, can at least be bearable to some degree. And of course, there's exceptions to every rule, but I would like to believe out of the 14 jobs that she applied for, there had to have been at least one that she could stick out, even just to make a paycheck and make ends meet. Because getting 14 W-2s in the mail, that honestly is insane to me. That is way too many jobs in 1 year, and she's only holding those jobs for 1 to 2 months at most. Like, eventually, people are gonna catch on in the community and in the area that you do hop out of jobs almost immediately after you get hired. And these are people who are in their 30s, by the way. The girlfriend in this story is 32 years old, and she is still job hopping. Like, that honestly is not a good sign in my opinion, and I completely understand where the original poster is coming from when they are like literally worried about this. So honestly, in my opinion, it's time for something to change. Otherwise, this is going to be a mess later on in life. Because the original poster has it right. They literally can't plan for anything financially in their future, especially if his girlfriend can't keep a job, which is in and of itself, in my opinion, incredibly unfair. Am I the jerk for being irritated with my parents after they took my car out for a drive without my permission, all while I was overseas and out of town? Because right now they're completely dodging the issue, and I seriously feel like I'm being gaslit, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I was overseas last month, and I gave my parents my car and house keys in case of an emergency. They asked me if I wanted to leave my car at their house while I was away, and I said no. My reason was that I didn't want them driving my car at their leisure just because I was away from my home, and I suspected that would happen if it was parked on their property. So I left my car parked in my apartment block for the duration of my trip. Well, when I got back, I noticed that my car was very clean, which wasn't its state before my trip. I didn't think much of this until I had a light bulb moment at my parents' house and realized they must have taken it. So I asked my mom, "Mom, why is my car so clean?" She responded by saying, "Your dad wanted to be kind and cleaned your car for you while you were away. We also thought it wasn't good that your car sat in the heat all day." I responded by saying, did you drive it while I was away? My mom then said, no, Dad obviously had to fetch it, but he walked to your flat and drove it home. Now, at this point, I didn't believe them, and I made up this next part of the conversation just to call their bluff. I responded by saying, interesting. Well, I noticed the odometer is up about 20 kilometers since my trip. My mom and dad took a very long pause, and then my mom responded by saying, well, we fetched another person for dinner on the way home, but that was all. So I asked her, so you didn't drive them home after dinner then? My mom responded by saying, oh no, we did, but that was all. Now, at this point, I left the conversation and I went home. A few days later, I picked up the conversation again with my mom. I said to her, I don't think it's right that you took my car without asking. My mom looked at me and said, oh my goodness, I can't believe you ever even said that. If your dad had to hear how ungrateful you are, he would be very upset. I responded by saying, I'm not saying I don't appreciate the car wash, but generally, if you want to take my stuff, I would appreciate it if you asked me first. My mom then responded by saying, listen, when you were younger, you took my car too. Do you remember? Why are we even having this conversation? But I went back at her and I said, because it's not right to take someone else's stuff without asking. Now, at this point, my mom got very defensive. She said to me, you know, it sounds like you're asking for petrol or something like that, and I'm sorry, but we don't do that in this family. We treat others with kindness. I said to her that I'm not asking for petrol, I'm just saying that they should not take my things without asking. My mom then gives me a bit of an attitude. She turns to my partner, laughs and says, okay then. Now, honestly, I need to know, am I the jerk for finding this completely inappropriate? My opinion is that I'm being gaslit and I'm being lied to, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. You are not being unreasonable at all in my opinion. You asked your parents a very simple thing. Don't take my car around without asking me first. And you know what? Sure, I'm convinced that they probably would have taken care of it and that nothing would have gone wrong and they really did try to like make it look nice and all that, but that honestly is completely beyond the point. It doesn't matter how much they tidied up that car or how well they washed it or anything else like that. It seems like your parents are missing the point that you set a very clear boundary and you basically said, hey, don't take my car out, with your mom basically trying to excuse it as if them cleaning it and washing the car is somehow going to make up for them violating your boundaries. Like, it really seems like they're talking around the issue instead of landing directly on what they did. And you know what? A car is very expensive. Like, what if they got in an accident and your car got totaled? Suddenly, you can't go to work and your parents are the reason that happened. Like, I would be furious if that happened to me and I couldn't get my stuff done all because my parents ignored my demands. So honestly, the next time you go out of town or do anything else, I honestly would not leave your house keys or your car keys with your parents. Because if they're willing to go and take your car wherever they want without your permission, then in my opinion, they would absolutely try it again. Am I the jerk for using ChatGPT to tell my extended family about my wife's pregnancy? Because right now, the majority of them have found out about what I did. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've got myself into a bit of a ridiculous situation here, and I need some outside perspective. So I have a very complicated relationship with my family, especially on my father's side. My parents got divorced when I was a teenager due to infidelity, and since then, I've really distanced myself from my father. I also don't appreciate how he and his family make a production out of every last thing. You didn't send a birthday card to the aunt that you haven't seen in years? Well, now the entire family is messaging you on Facebook, and they're going to be berating you. They also have a tendency to make comments about my mother, which I am very quick to shut down. Anyways, my wife and I found out that she was pregnant a few months ago. I am extremely excited to become a parent, but also have some major projects at work right now that have kept me busy and exhausted. I told my mom, dad, and my brother in person about all that's going on, but this is where I might be the jerk. Obviously, it was really important to me to give my wife the support that she needs during her pregnancy, especially because my own father didn't. Between that and work, accomplishing anything except taking care of my house and wife felt incredibly exhausting. I also knew if I didn't send a personal announcement to every last relative, I would never hear the end of it. And as a side note, my dad's family is huge. There are dozens of nosy aunts that I have to deal with. So I decided to go to ChatGPT. Basically, I asked the AI to create a text message for my aunts and cousins announcing that my wife is pregnant. And this is right when everything starts to go wrong. Apparently, I wasn't as sneaky as I thought because two of my aunts compared their messages and noticed that they were similar. This led one of them, who is a teacher, to run it through an AI detector. Well, the results were pretty damaging. And now everyone on my dad's side who's young enough to understand what I did is royally pissed off at me. I basically told anyone who asked that I knew they would be offended if they didn't receive a message, and that I didn't have time to message people I haven't seen in years individually just to thank them for their involvement in my life up to this point. My wife is more amused than anything since she knows about my history with my family and probably could care less if I didn't tell all of them. And my good friend told me that I shouldn't have messaged them at all. So honestly, am I the jerk for using an AI just to message my extended family? Because at this point, I seriously don't don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this first and foremost. Your extended family is so weird. Like, not only are they super reactive to everything that anybody does, and it almost seems like they're searching for something to be upset about, but they also felt the need to not only dissect exactly what you text to everybody in the family, but they also had the genuine thought to run your message through an AI detector. Like, maybe it's just me, but that is literally insane behavior. Like, who in their right mind would be like, wow, this message looks weird. Let's check and see if a computer wrote it. It's like, what is wrong with these people? They are so strange to me. So to answer your question, of course you didn't do anything wrong. These people are freaks. They're not normal. They are literally scratching and searching for drama, all in a situation where they should be congratulating you. It's like they read this message of like, oh yeah, his wife's pregnant. But what about the message itself? Did he actually send it? Is it actually a computer that did it? Like, what is wrong with these people? Like, seriously. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. I think the fact that they got upset over this is seriously the most ridiculous thing on planet Earth, because this literally just proves how toxic these people are, and hopefully in the future, you don't have to deal with them in this capacity ever again. Am I the jerk for taking one of my husband's cheeseburgers after he gave away nearly my entire lunch to all of our kids? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have 3 sons. Last Saturday, he took them out to run errands while I stayed at home to do some housework. They went to McDonald's on the way home, and they brought food back for me. I told them to give me a 10-piece chicken nuggets meal and a medium fry, but apparently the boys were still hungry in the car after eating their meals and asked my husband if they could have some of my food. He told them they could have a couple of nuggets and a few fries, and his reasoning was that I rarely finish my whole order, which is true for the most part. I usually only eat 7 to 8 nuggets and then most of my fries. Well, they each took 2 nuggets and a few fries, which means that what was handed to me for lunch was 4 nuggets and about 1/4 of the container of fries. Now, my husband has this habit of buying himself free extra cheeseburgers, and it's those little thin ones when he goes to McDonald's, and he does this so that he can eat them for breakfast the next day. He puts them in the waffle iron to reheat them, and he swears that it's his favorite breakfast. Now, knowing that he had already eaten his full McDonald's lunch, and he still had those cheeseburgers, I asked him for one so I could have a full lunch, but he said no because he needs them for breakfast. Now, here's where I might be the jerk. I went ahead and took one and ate it anyways. I was hungry and annoyed that my food was eaten, and it didn't make sense to me that he would deny me a full lunch so that he could just have breakfast. He still has 2 cheeseburgers for breakfast. He could easily have an egg with all that or something like that if it's not enough food. Well, he got mad that I ate his cheeseburger and doesn't think it's the same thing as him letting the kids eat my food because he didn't realize they took that much, so he didn't intend on upsetting me, whereas I knew I was upsetting him when I took the cheeseburger. He thinks that I could have just eaten leftovers or something like that, but seriously, he could do that as well, and I think he should since he gave my food away. Now, he thinks that I'm a jerk because I took his food even after he said no, but I was not even given the opportunity to say no before he let the kids take all of my food, so in my opinion, it's not a fair comparison. So truly, I need to know, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? I don't figure the jerk at all. Your husband gave away your lunch to your children and then has the audacity to get upset when you take 1 cheeseburger out of free? Like, seriously, this guy's 100% in the wrong. This is called reaping what you sow because this guy literally gave away your lunch. And sure, it's just a McDonald's lunch, but the principle still stands in my opinion. Like, if your kids were still hungry, why would you sacrifice your wife's meal instead of turning back around and getting something else for them? Or at least offering to like make something when you get home at your house? It's like the way this guy wanted to solve this problem was by sacrificing your enjoyment with your lunch. And that's honestly like super bizarre to me. That doesn't make any sense, especially when he tries to act offended when you took one of his cheeseburgers. Because in my opinion, I think the original poster is completely justified here. If he's gonna give away your food, then you have every right to take something from him. And it's not like you took that much, by the way. This guy very easily could still eat 2 of those cheeseburgers in the morning as well as an egg like you suggested. Like, this is such a weird thing to suddenly be upset about and offended over, especially when this guy started this whole incident in the first place. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your husband is just salty that he got a taste of his own medicine, and in my opinion, if he didn't want to be upset about you taking one of his cheeseburgers, then he maybe should have ensured that you actually got your lunch instead of allowing his kids to basically eat it all. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.